Okay, welcome to Data Distilled. I'm your host, Chris Teddy, and today we have two special guests from J.E. Dunn Construction. We have Kristy Johnson and Lyndsey Lowrey. I am not going to do the introduction. I'm going to hand it over to them and let them introduce themselves and talk about what they do. As a reminder, what we're trying to do is get a peek behind the curtain on what mission critical is for our listeners who may not ever understand or see how we operate. And this is just another avenue for our listeners to better familiarize themselves with what we do as a construction company in data centers. So I'll hand it over to you two.
Okay. Are all your guests special or just us?
All of them are special, but you are more special.
So I'm Lyndsey Lowrey. I am our HR regional vice president for the group that is mission critical. And I've been with J.E. Dunn for 2 years now, and my focus is on workforce planning, succession, talent development, and then a little bit of employee relations. So.
Perfect. I'm Kristy Johnson. I've been with J.E. Dunn for about 2.5 years now, so not much longer than Lyndsey. And I am our talent acquisition manager that supports specifically mission critical. I've been in the recruiting industry for, about 13, 14 years now. Prior came from healthcare IT background. So first time in the construction industry these past couple years. So I focus on everything construction related from a professional perspective, being field, operations, mechanical, electrical, you name it. From a professional lens, I recruit it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I teed it up saying, hey, we're trying to give you a lens of what we do in the mission critical world. And for this one specifically, we want to talk about development of individuals and recruiting of individuals. How does that landscape work with what you do specifically to the data center market? Are there different individuals? How do you guys attack that with what is, I consider, a very critical portion of our success? Because there is a very minimal workforce out there considered professional as well as the labor workforce. So give a kind of a background of what you do and how we attack, how we recruit and find professionals.
Yeah, I know that's a great question. Actually, I pulled some data before because I just wanted to come in with a background on what the supply market actually truly looks like within the construction industry, just because it really is a low supply market. We always hear about it, but sometimes the numbers are a little bit more staggering when you have that in front of you. So in the U.S. in itself, there's 285,000 construction managers, and that includes project management and field supervision. 25% of those are non-residential. So a lot of residential focus, right? And from a J.E. Dunn perspective, that's typically not, we definitely have considered and certainly have hired residential folks, but a lot of times with the experience we're looking at from a data center perspective, they need have a little bit more of the commercial lens or actual data center experience. But of that 25%, 71,000 are potential prospects. And so that's less than 0.1% of the estimated U.S. population and less than 0.2% of the eligible workforce. So that gives you a really true idea of how hard it is to recruit, right? So coming in from just a recruiting perspective, finding those type of candidates, no one would be surprised when we say we utilize LinkedIn. We certainly utilize LinkedIn, and it's also the company that you work for is a big part there. A candidate is interested in what you have to hear or what you have to say from when you pitch them of what is the company. Typically, I throw in there where we stand from a mission critical perspective and the numbers, right, compared to our competitors. So they want to hear that if they've not heard of you. We do have a little limited angle of folks we can reach out to due to folks in our own programs and, our own clients that we have, but you can still get creative in that. And when you're talking to someone who's been working in a hospital setting for 10 plus years and you can see some of the mega projects they've worked on, the work, how it aligns to what we do potentially with data centers, and how can we train and educate those folks to make them successful. So I think a big part of that is looking outside of the box of just having data center experience and focusing on, what is their skill set, and can we train and educate to make them successful with our JE Done structure, if you will.
Does it make it more difficult for the quote unquote clandestine world we work in? There's very limited stuff we can utilize to recruit individuals.
Yeah, I would say so, but not sucking up here. But it is good to know that the teams that I work and recruit with, the managers, they all get what position I'm in. So they know that they're not going to find a top construction manager at one of our big competitors that also work in a program with one of our clients, right? So how do we adapt and pivot to be able to bring someone in and train them up on what they need to know, right? So yeah, I think that going back to the team, they certainly help with that. It certainly does have its challenges, but JE Done as a whole, we all know, not we all, but we are celebrating our centennial. That means something. Folks have heard of us. So that is huge on being able to recruit, because when you represent a company that has a great reputation, it makes your job easier as a recruiter.
Very much so. Totally agree. Lyndsey, how do we look at not just the professional hires, but the new hires we have with the development of the Advanced Facilities Group, or AFG, within JE Done? We have I'll call it a niche group. It's not the typical commercial construction that we're used to seeing every day, but in its own right, there's a lot that we still have to overlap with the general construction. Do we have a different path, or do we look at anything for training or development of these individuals a different way? I mean, there's a lot of different personalities out there, and some people need to be looked at or approached totally different. Is that typical for this, or how do we approach that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I had heard from the day that I started that mission critical work is different and that it's complex. And then I hear from the other side that nope, it's the same. And so I hear it from two different sides, but I will say from what I've learned and what I've observed, it is different and it is very much complex. And a lot of that is the travel piece too, but just the client expectations, which makes us better builders. And so they've got heightened requirements for our project management and superintendent staff, which makes us better. And I think a lot of that is how are we going to take somebody from a healthcare project and they've got the skill sets that we need, but also kind of throw them into a situation where it's going to be a little bit more demanding than maybe what they're used to, but in a good way, and it challenges them, but it's also not for everyone. So we have the unique opportunity to say, hey, we've got a slate of talent here today that's coming from a different industry or a different market, and they're coming over and maybe they decide they love it or they don't. And that's okay with us because we want the folks that do want to be, driving in this complex environment, and we're okay with that if it's not for them. But as far as development, I think what I've seen from the mission critical group here, we are very intentional at doing some ongoing training and development for all of the employees. And it's kind of that just-in-time training. And I've sat in a couple of them, and to be honest, it's a bit over my head, but I just sit in to listen. But I think the last one was around scheduling and commissioning. And so each month is a different topic. But then for our new hires, from a corporate perspective, we're doing something from a training and development for, hey, what's your role as a PE or a PM with our Building Blue program, but it's not specific to mission critical. So what I like is that our mission critical group is building out specific programs that's business led versus HR led, because I think it goes a long way.
So hand in hand, it's kind of both things. You got the traditional company training that we usually do. We need to continue to do that. And then we add in a little more project specific or industry specific training that we do monthly.
Right.
And you're right. It's not for everybody. It's the same thing with anything else. They're like, what I do now, I may go to somewhere else and go, this isn't for me. And that's okay. I always like to try and the fear of mission critical of a data center, it's not that scary. It's if I can get involved in it, anybody can get involved in it. But you're gonna find there are individuals that it's a little too intense for some individuals. It's a little too complex. My personality is kind of go, go, go.
Yep.
I like to say high speed, low drag. That's not what everybody is.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And I think that's where I try to focus on the personnel that we're looking for. We were talking about a recruit the other day that was playing a D1 sport. We're actually talking to him academics wise. He's an engineer. And I'm like, bring him in. I want to interview this because I think he may have a personality that I want to utilize. And that's unique, but maybe that's just my personality.
Yeah.
No, and I loved your response when we got that email with that candidate of here's their background. They're an athlete and they have a mechanical electrical, degree, but not really any construction experience. And you were like, let's take them because they have the personality type. And I think if we're willing to train up, I think it is more about, do you have the drive and the energy and wanting to work in that complex, blessed to be stressed environment, because that goes a long way. And I would choose that individual any day over somebody that may have 10 years of construction experience. Like, you want the folks that have the drive and the passion to want to be here in that environment because it's different.
And that goes back to our limited pool that we have. So it's important, as I mentioned earlier, having a good team that understands it. You're going to have to kind of take chances on folks that, from a personality perspective, they want that hard, that fast-paced work, right? And that's what I look for when I'm talking to a candidate. I know if I'm talking to someone who I can tell are not interested in fast-paced work, or they make little comments, that might not be a fit for what we're looking for, but doesn't mean they're not a fit with JE Dunn, right? It's just project specific. And I think that a lot of most candidates that come with mission critical experience and have worked on a data center, no matter what data center it is, they have a little bit of an idea, right? And so even if I can't actively go after them, they know what to expect here, and that makes them quality too.
Both of you come from a different background or a different company before Dunn. Are there differences in what you have done before you came to JE Dunn to what you're doing now, or specifically to mission critical or AFG, or for that matter? Anything that's clearly not the same?
There's a lot of things that are clearly not the same. So just like Kristy, I also come from a healthcare IT background, and I was there for 12 years and spent most of my career there. And I drank the Kool-Aid for a long time, and it's a Kansas City-based company, and I'm still very proud and passionate about that company. And still have some dear friends there. But it wasn't until I interviewed at JE Dunn, and actually Kristy convinced me to do that I realized, oh my gosh, the grass is greener on the other side. And I'm not just saying that because I'm here now and this is a podcast and maybe we can get some recruits out of it. But but it really is, it's a night and day difference. And I know I just said, the mission critical world is complex and fast paced and a very different environment, but it still is that at JE Dunn anyway. And I think this is probably true at a lot of construction companies, hopefully, but there is that family first and, mentality. And I think that's true too for even our travelers. We try to take very good care of our travelers who are on the road because most of our employees within Mission Critical are. And it's just really good to see that from the top, our CEO loves our people. And it's not just he's saying that. I mean, he truly loves our people. And I've felt that from day one of just the people that I work with that have supported Kristy and I in our careers here and just trying to educate us on construction and making sure we have a seat at the table. The processes that we go through in HR, like succession planning, performance management, that's all the same. But it's the way people care about our people that make it different, in my opinion.
Yeah, I couldn't say that any better. I totally agree. A process is a process. Recruitment is recruitment on our end. So even though I recruited different talent, you still take that skill set to a different area, and this being construction. But when I had the conversation with Lyndsey, just of how just collaborative, and you actually have a seat at the table when you have conversations and you're respected. There's saying it and there's doing it, and we actually do it, versus in my previous employer, you would highlight that, but HR was always the bad guy. So it's hard. It's just so nice to actually feel like you're part of a team more than just being in HR. And again, there's a reason why we've been around for so long, right? And I can personally attest to that. Even my husband, he'll joke all the time and he'll say, "So I'll take a demotion. What do I need to do at J.E. Dunn? I'll come on over," because just he knows how well I'm taken care of here. And it goes such a long way. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Look, we're obviously a data center podcast, and I think I bring this up every time. AI, ChatGPT, Bard, Gemini, whatever term you want to call it now. Have you used it recently, and what have you used it for?
So Lyndsey obviously uses it more than me because we were just talking about it. I don't know if we want the fun fact that Chris Teddy, and embarrassingly enough, had to explain what that was to me. Like, I don't know, a year ago, Teddy. So
It's just when it became popular, though.
maybe everyone looked at me with big eyes and wondered. So fun fact, everyone listening to the podcast, but it wasn't like it was yesterday. So I want to make that clear, everyone. I scarcely use it.
And I, on the other hand, love ChatGPT. It is the first one on my favorites bar because it's as simple as, hey, I'm trying to think of this word that I want to use in an email. And I love email and I love PowerPoint and I love all the things. But there are certain words that I'm like, let me just see what ChatGPT has to say. And so I will copy paste the email that I'm about to send and just say, hey, can I look this over? And gives me very good insights and it also, sometimes I'm one and that will use a lot of words, and it helps me kind of condense my email back. But I love ChatGPT. I know Erica was just saying she uses it to plan trips. I've heard that from a lot of people that are give you a full itinerary. You just say where you're going and it says, here's what you should be doing at what time. And here's the links to go, reserve your spa. What do you use it for?
I use it emails is quite a bit is what I use it for. And I usually write the email and then I put it in a ChatGPT to rewrite it and see what it does. I recently used it where my wife, God love her, she called me out on it. Every year I got to write the Christmas letter. And every year I write the Christmas letter. This year I didn't tell her. I wrote it and then I put it into ChatGPT and it spit it back out.
She could tell.
I gave it to her and she goes, "There's no way in hell you wrote this." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Wait, so you guys send a Christmas letter out to just about your year?
About the year, talking about all the kids, yeah. I have to condense it to one page. Each paragraph is about a kid, and it always goes down that path. Cool. And every year I have a buddy that either sends back edits to me, like he kicks back an edit, and then at the same time another friend of my wife's sends back, "This is the best, I love it," and I put those two together, take a picture, and send it to both of them. I'm like, is there a difference between you two?
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, that's cool. Well, include us on your mailing list next year.
I have it on here if you want to read it one time.
Okay, very good.
All right, let's see where we're going here. Let's go I'm going to go flip the script and do another challenging question. Is there anything you're listening to or reading that you want your listeners to hear about? Work-related, not work-related, fun, not fun, just as a personality kind of thing.
I have two. Well, it depends on, are you wanting, well, let me just explain. So I have some that are more like self-improvement podcasts that I listen to. And then I also have my news. So I listen to the daily, probably daily from the New York Times. I try to anyways, just so I don't watch the news regularly. So I like to listen to what is provided there. And then obviously all my Bravo content.
Is there a Bravo podcast?
There's about 1 million.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And I subscribe to probably 10 of them that I listen to in with my self-improvement podcast.
That's what I want to know the Bravo podcast I have to listen to.
Actually, do you want to hear? Just yesterday, I tagged someone who creates Bravo podcasts, or the individual I listen to, into a picture on Instagram because it was about an old interview of a Vanderpump Rules individual, if anyone knows that show. And the podcaster liked it and commented back to me. I felt really
wow.
Cool. No one, just everyone
Kristy
listening right now, there are mouths wide open.
If you are listening to this You have to give us a comment about either a Bravo podcast or BravoCon. I'm saying that because I don't know if you've ever been to BravoCon. I didn't know that was a real thing
Until you met Kristy Johnson.
until I met you.
And I was definitely first in line getting those tickets because I told you they sold out very quickly. But we snagged them and we went for 3 days.
I'm so
And it was the best
jealous.
weekend.
So jealous.
If you ever want, a schooling on Bravo content podcast, you could be my guest.
Let's set it up. Lyndsey?
Yes. So I love me some Bravo. That's probably my go-to as well. But as far as like professional development, I'm a huge Brene Brown fan, and then Simon Sinek. So those are my kind of spirit animals, so to speak. I like Simon because he keeps up with the generations, and he, gives me insights to stuff that I feel, I'm only in my mid-30s, but he's given me insights to the folks that are coming right out of college, and I'm thinking, what in the world is going on with this generation? But it's like you've got to adapt to it. So he helps me he puts me in check a lot of times because that's the world that we have to adapt to, and it's a good thing. And so that's what I love Simon for. But Brene is truly kind of a spirit animal of mine. I just love her. She's been an incredible podcast and books. I've got 3 of her books, and she kind of tells it like it is. And a lot of it's around kind of org development and stuff like that. But she's very good. Harvard Business Review. I think, Teddy, you probably get articles from me often from the Harvard Business Review because they've got a lot of stuff out there about culture and how to lead teams and manage effectively. But those are some of the professional. But then I love me some Bravo stuff. And then I like the murder mystery stuff. So anything that involves murder or, trying to solve crime, either whether it's a book or a Netflix show or a podcast, send it my way.
Did you listen to the Serial one when it came out years ago? That was so awesome.
Actually, when you started talking and you were using your NPR voice, it made me think of the lady that did the Serial podcast. Yeah. She might have been from that, but yes, I think that's one of the few murder mysteries I listened to. Yeah.
Spinning back, I'm a big Simon Sinek fan, and I think he does rein me back into to understand there's differences in generations, and you have to observe to that. Going back to questions in the podcast, generationally inside of companies, is that as recognized as it used to be? Is it getting more recognized? Because I think there are managers that struggle with leading different generations. And if that's an observation you have, I think it's something I have. Are there tricks around that? How do we adapt to who we are dealing with?
That is a great question. And a good thing about J. Dunn is that we've got a lot of people that have been here for a long time, 40 years. But it does create some challenges when we have, folks coming in right out of college that have just different expectations when it comes to not only work-life balance, because I think even those at the most tenure have that already, but they've got the expectations of recognition, or I want those weekly check-ins. I want to know how I'm doing. I want to hear a thank you, whereas those that have been here for 40 years are like, I was never, given a thank you. That's just your job. That's what you get a paycheck for. So it is challenging, and it's interesting. I think where we're evolving from our company, at least, is in the past, it was the only way you can get promoted is if you manage people. So we went through the motions of promoting really good subject matter experts that were great at their job, but did not necessarily have a passion for leading people. And that's okay. And we want to be okay with having our subject matter experts not leading people. But in the past, that was just how you got promoted. That's how you grew your career. And then I think, as the new generations are coming, they want a manager that cares and that is spending time with them. And that's not just focused on the work, but also helping grow the individual. And so we're getting a little bit more intentional. And this, Teddy, when we talk about succession planning, but we are becoming more intentional of who we're putting in that manager spot, but also allowing those subject matter experts to grow. And I think that's a big difference that will shift and help hopefully retain some of the new grads. Because a lot of the newer generation, they do a lot of job hopping. And you hear me say this too, like we want to make sure that we're rolling out the red carpet for the folks that leave, because I've only been here 2 years and I've done several exit interviews with people that are now back with us because they've left and realized the grass wasn't greener. And so we have to be okay with that, with folks wanting to go explore their opportunities, and just know that hopefully they'll come back.
Never burn a bridge.
Yep.
Never burn a bridge.
Always have open arms with
We
them.
like those boomerang hires.
We love those
We've
boomerang
made a couple
hires.
of those.
I
Yeah.
never heard of a boomerang hire until you told me one time, and I thought that, and then either I just started recognizing it, but there have been several people that have come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True testament to Jay Dunn, which is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I read an article in the Wall Street Journal this morning, and it says indispensable to disposable. Being the only staffer with certain skills might feel like insurance, but to some bosses, it's a red flag. And I got to the article and I was reading through it, and it was saying you want to be the most indispensable person where they can't live without you as an employee. But now people are seeing that as a negative. I'm not sure I agree with it, or it's more of a aha moment for me. I'm like, I would have never thought that if you are so good at one thing, they can't get rid of you, but people are seeing that as a red flag. Any thoughts on that? Because I'm not sure I agree with that kind of concept.
I don't know. I'm with you. I don't know that I agree with that, but we do have some of those folks here that were like, we cannot lose them.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to even thinking about how do we plan for their succession, we're thinking, I mean, think of it with CMIC. That's a program that we use here at J.E. Dunn that is it a homegrown? It's not homegrown.
It's not homegrown, but we have adapted it to almost be almost.
Yeah. So it's not very common. And so there are, that's an example of like, we've got certain subject matter experts that if they were to leave, our system would be literally broken. And that's, to me, that's not great, but it's good for job security for that person. So I don't know why it's not a good thing for them, but it makes us need to be better at succession planning and making sure that we do a good job of planning for who's that next successor, but then what's the plan to get them to be that next person that we can't live without.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, that is interesting because the reality is, I don't want to put a percent on it, but I do think there is a high percent that, matter of fact, is replaceable to an extent, right? And knowing that people can be replaceable is probably what that's getting at. But those niche skill sets is definitely interesting how it plays into that.
Okay, I got a question. This is another off script. You got a cocktail in your hand because it's data distilled, and you're reaching for another one, which I'm going to have one here in a second too. What is you said spirit animal, so I'm going to, what's your spirit drink of choice?
A dirty martini.
Were you guessing that that was it?
No. Dirty martini, 100%.
That's same. I love my dirty martinis because of KJ. Actually, I didn't really like dirty martinis before that, but I also love espresso martinis because I'm the type that likes to go to bed at like 8:39. And so if I'm out and about with my J. Dunn friends, that's not always possible. So espresso martinis for me when I'm on a work event helps keep me up and energized. But then if I'm by myself, I just like wine.
I think espresso. I think martinis are mine. They're dry and to the point, and I think I'm to the point. Sometimes dry, questionable, depends. But if anyone knows me, they know I say it how it is.
What's yours?
Hetty agrees.
I'm a whiskey guy, so I like Irish whiskey.
Yeah.
I like to consider myself an equal opportunity drinker too.
Okay.
I'll have everything. But I would go to an Irish whiskey. I was sitting with Joe the other day, and Joe goes, somebody had an espresso martini, and I go, I don't know if I like this. Joe's like, that doesn't seem like you. I feel like that's your personality. I'm like, well, I want coffee. I want a martini. I don't need them combined.
They're great combined.
I don't think I could do it. It's too sweet for me.
Oh, it's so good. But
are they too sweet? I think it depends. It's not like a chocolate there's chocolate martinis. Those are probably too sweet.
But sometimes the espresso martinis, depending on where you go to get it, they might have looked at you and said, ooh, this guy's more of a sweet,
Do I have that personality?
Yeah. You look like you like those fruity cocktails. They probably put an umbrella in there for you.
I would never be opposed to a drink with an umbrella in it, but I would never order it just because it has the umbrella in it.
Oh, okay.
Gordon actually has talked about his recipe, and I've never tried it before, but it's very simple. I think it's like very, very little of the froth. It's more of the coffee and the vodka. So you might ask him for his recipe.
I could do that
because it's not at all sweet.
That's why I was looking. I'm like,
that's my new drink, Liqueur 43 with espresso.
You told me about that. It's delicious.
It's my new drink. That's all it is.
Liqueur 43.
I had not experienced it until I went to a place, Lazia in Kansas City. Yes.
That's right down by the crossroads.
It's built by a J.E. Dunn. Yeah.
By the Freight House area, isn't it?
It's the Crossroads Hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had it there, and it's a game changer drink.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What else do you guys have for questions for me?
Tell us about the people. What do you think keeps you up at night? Because we're both in HR, and I think you do a really good job of building the culture in Mission Critical. But how'd you get to this place?
What keeps me up at night? Let's start with that. In terms of people, I think my biggest fear of people is whether or not they feel like they're being not acknowledged enough, that they're given enough to do something that feels like they're providing value, where you never want to be sitting around and forgot about. And I'll relate it to sports. I always said when a coach doesn't talk to you, that's always a problem. When a coach is talking to you, coaching you, that means they want you to get better. It's hard for me, and it's got to be hard for a lot of managers to be able to spread that wealth around. And I always fear that I'm not doing enough for individuals to go, hey, how's it going? Hey, do this, focus on that. And when you get to a point where you have too many direct reports, it makes it harder to do that. So that's a fear I have. And I always want to try and balance that out. Where I go with the culture, if I'm having fun, I feel like there is no bad day, no hard, like there's always going to be challenges. And I kind of thrive in a world of chaos and challenges, and I really enjoy that. If I'm having a good day, or if I'm trying to be positive, I find it works a lot easier. So joy is a big deal to me. So laughing is always a big deal to me. And I think that's where I try to spread that culture is I hope they're having a good time. I want to make sure they're having a good time. If you're not having a good time, I don't want you to be here either.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I feel like from my observation, Chris, you have that kind of open door policy, and people do feel comfortable coming to you. So kudos. Unplanned attrition is at an all-time low at like less than 3%, which is huge. But also, I mean, this going back to my spirit animal, Simon Sinek, he says, he quotes this often, like if you love your job and you're overwhelmed in your job, you're going to be passionate about it. If you're overwhelmed in your job and you're stressed, it's probably not for you. And that's where we go back to in Mission Critical. That's okay. And I think you guys do a really good job of letting people know that it's okay to say, this isn't for me, and I'm going to go somewhere else, maybe within J.E. Dunn, hopefully within J.E. Dunn, but it doesn't mean they're a bad project manager. They're really good. It's just that environment is not for them. And you guys do a really good job of, I think, letting people know that that's okay to opt out.
Them. Absolutely. Yeah.
Amen. I think a lot of our low attrition is attributed to the people that I get to work with every day. There are so many great people in our group that it again makes it joyful to come to work every day. So there is a lot of stress in what we do, but I'm never to the point where I'm like, I can't stand this. I know I enjoy a challenge here and there. And hopefully I can display that and make sure it's okay to be challenged and overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're not having fun, it's better to, I always say, lose somebody internally than it is to lose somebody externally. So you'd be better off in this group. Let's go figure out how to make that work.
Yeah. Exactly.
100%.
Cool.
Love it.
Cheers. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you.